Have you ever wondered what happens when two ancient Greek gods clash over the mastery of nature itself? Imagine waves as tall as mountains crashing against the shores of Greece, while a goddess stands resolute against their fury. This is the tale of how Athene, goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, proved her divine might against Poseidon, the temperamental ruler of the seas. In the golden age of ancient Greece, when gods walked freely among mortals, the realms of divine power were clearly defined. Poseidon commanded the vast oceans, his trident stirring up storms that could shatter coastlines. Athene, born from Zeus's head, fully grown and armed, governed wisdom, strategic warfare, and the practical arts of civilization. Yet sometimes, even the most established boundaries between divine powers were tested. The conflict began when sailors and coastal dwellers increasingly turned to Athene for protection during their maritime ventures. They had grown weary of Poseidon's unpredictable nature, his tendency to wreck ships on a whim, and his storms that devoured entire fleets. These mortals recognized that Athene's gift of wisdom might offer a safer passage across the treacherous seas than Poseidon's volatile favors. Poseidon, his pride wounded by this shift in mortal allegiance, unleashed his fury upon the Mediterranean. Waves rose like liquid mountains, storms darkened skies that had never known such darkness, and the seas churned with unprecedented violence. His message was clear. No other deity, not even Zeus's favorite daughter, could challenge his dominion over the waters. Athene watched from Mount Olympus as coastal cities suffered and trade routes became impassable. Unlike her impulsive uncle, she understood that true power lay not in destruction, but in mastery and control. She knew she must act, not just to protect her mortal followers, but to demonstrate that wisdom could tame even the wildest forces of nature. One stormy morning, Athene descended to Cape Saunion, where one of her most sacred temples stood overlooking Poseidon's domain. The sea god had whipped the waters into a frenzy, creating waves that threatened to devour the very cliffs upon which her temple was built. As lightning split the sky and thunder shook the earth, Athene raised her spear. Instead of meeting force with force, Athene employed her legendary strategic mind. She began by understanding the patterns within Poseidon's chaos, the rhythms hidden in the storm's rage. With each wave that crashed against the cliffs, she learned more about the nature of the sea itself. This was not just a battle of power, but a lesson in the superiority of wisdom over raw strength. Drawing upon her divine knowledge, Athene started to impose order upon chaos. She moved her spear in precise patterns, each gesture calculated to affect the water's movement. Gradually, the massive waves began to respond to her influence. Where Poseidon created turbulence, Athene introduced harmony. The water's surface, which had been a violent maelstrom moments before, slowly transformed into organized patterns. Poseidon, sensing the change in his domain, emerged from the depths in a chariot pulled by magnificent hippocampi. His expression betrayed both anger and disbelief as he watched Athene tame his wild seas. He raised his trident, attempting to reassert his dominion, but found that Athene's calculated influence could not be easily undone. The goddess demonstrated that true mastery comes not from the ability to create chaos, but from the wisdom to understand and guide natural forces. Under her influence, the waves began to dance in rhythmic patterns, creating a display of both power and beauty. Ships that had been tossing helplessly in the storm found themselves guided safely to harbor by these newly organized currents. This display of divine wisdom over brute force drew the attention of the other Olympians. Zeus himself appeared in the storm clouds above, observing the contest between his daughter and his brother. Even he had not expected Athene to demonstrate such masterful control over another god's domain. Poseidon, though his pride was wounded, could not deny the elegance of Athene's solution. She had not sought to strip him of his power over the seas, but had instead shown how wisdom could work in harmony with natural forces. This lesson resonated deeply with the ancient Greeks, who saw in it a reflection of their own struggles to build civilization in harmony with nature's power. The aftermath of this divine demonstration changed how mortals viewed their relationship with the sea. They learned that respect for Poseidon's power, combined with Athene's wisdom, offered the best protection during maritime ventures. Sailors began to pray to both deities, seeking Poseidon's favor for calm waters, while asking Athene for the wisdom to navigate them safely. This story, passed down through generations, teaches us that true power lies not in the ability to destroy, but in the wisdom to understand and guide. It reminds us that even the most turbulent forces in our lives can be mastered through knowledge, strategy, and patient understanding. Just as Athene proved that wisdom could calm the mightiest waves, we too can face our challenges not with brute force, but with thoughtful determination and strategic thinking. The temples at Cape Saunian still stand today, monuments to both Athene and Poseidon, reminding visitors of this ancient lesson in the triumph of wisdom over chaos. In their weathered columns, we can still feel the echo of that divine contest, where a goddess of wisdom proved that understanding nature's power is greater than. What if the entire universe was actually dancing, not just metaphorically, but literally pulsing with the rhythm of creation and destruction? In Hindu mythology, this cosmic dance is performed by one of the most enigmatic deities, Lord Shiva, the destroyer of ignorance and the harbinger of transformation. Shiva exists beyond time itself, dwelling in the snow-capped peaks of Mount Kailash in the Himalayas. He is part of the divine trinity, along with Brahma the creator and Vishnu the preserver. While Brahma creates and Vishnu maintains, Shiva dissolves not just the physical universe, but also the ego, ignorance, and attachments that bind human consciousness. Picture Shiva in his most iconic form as Nataraja, the cosmic dancer. His dance, called the Tandava, represents the 5 activities of the cosmos: creation, preservation, destruction, concealment, and revelation. In his upper right hand, he holds the Damaru, a drum that beats the rhythm of creation. His upper left hand carries Agni, the fire of destruction. His lower right hand shows the Abhaya Mudra, bestowing protection, while his lower left hand points to his raised foot, symbolizing liberation. The circle of fire surrounding him represents the cosmic cycle of birth and death. Under his right foot lies the demon of ignorance, crushed by divine wisdom. This sacred image, found in temples and museums worldwide, has even been displayed at CERN, where scientists study the dance of subatomic particles, acknowledging the profound connection between ancient wisdom and modern physics. But Shiva is not just the cosmic dancer. He is also the perfect yogi, seated in deep meditation atop Mount Kailash. His body smeared with ash, wearing a tiger skin, with the crescent moon adorning his matted locks. He represents the ultimate renunciate. The ash reminds us that all material existence eventually returns to its basic elements. The snake around his neck symbolizes the Kundalini energy that yogis seek to awaken. Perhaps most striking is Shiva's third eye, centered on his forehead. This is not a physical eye, but the eye of wisdom that sees beyond duality. When opened, it can reduce desires and delusions to ashes, just as it once burned Kama, the god of desire, who dared to disturb Shiva's meditation. Yet Shiva is also a loving family man, sharing his life with his consort Parvati, the daughter of the mountains. Their love story is legendary, how Parvati performed intense penance to win Shiva's attention, how she reminded him that while detachment is important, divine love is equally sacred. Their sons, Ganesha and Kartikya, complete this divine family, showing that spiritual life need not mean abandoning worldly responsibilities. Shiva's throat is blue, earning him the name Nilakantha, the blue-throated one. This comes from the story of Samudra Manthan, the churning of the cosmic ocean. When deadly poison emerged threatening all existence, Shiva drank it to save the universe. Instead of swallowing it, he held it in his throat, turning it blue. This teaches us that even poison can become medicine in the hands of the wise. Devotees worship Shiva through the lingam, a symbolic form representing the formless nature of the divine. The lingam, often set in a circular base called the yoni, represents the union of consciousness and energy, the divine masculine and feminine principles that pervade all creation. Shiva teaches us profound truths through his very appearance. His matted locks show that external beauty is meaningless. The Ganges flowing from his hair reminds us to let divine grace flow through us to serve others. The serpents around his body represent mastery over fear and desire. Even his vehicle, the bull Nandi, symbolizes Dharma, the eternal law that supports the universe. The mantra Om Namah Shivaya, I bow to Shiva, is chanted by millions daily. Each syllable represents an element: earth, water, fire, air, and space, plus the individual soul seeking union with cosmic consciousness. This simple yet powerful mantra is said to contain all wisdom. Shiva's message for our modern world is clear: transformation requires letting go. Just as he burns away impurities, we must be willing to release what no longer serves our growth. His meditation teaches us that peace comes from within, not from external achievements or possessions. His family life shows that we can be spiritual while fulfilling our worldly duties. In essence, Shiva represents the supreme paradox: the destroyer who is supremely compassionate, the ascetic who is the perfect lover, the fierce deity who is the most easily pleased. He reminds us that life's opposing forces, creation and destruction, love and detachment, material and spiritual, are not contradictions, but complementary aspects of the same divine dance. As we face personal and global transformations today, Shiva's eternal dance continues, inviting us to find rhythm in chaos, wisdom in destruction, and ultimately, liberation in letting go. For in Shiva's dance lies the secret of the universe. Eternal change is the only constant. What drives a legendary hero to destroy himself? In ancient Greece, even the mightiest warriors could fall victim to their own demons, and few tales illustrate this better than the tragic story of Ajax the Great. Picture the blood-soaked plains of Troy, where the greatest Greek warriors have fought for nearly a decade. The mighty Achilles has fallen, struck down by Paris's arrow. But amid the grief of his death, another battle is about to begin, not with swords and spears, but with words and wit. Ajax stands as one of the most formidable warriors in the Greek army. Second only to Achilles in strength and skill, his massive shield has become legendary among both Greeks and Trojans. Standing 7 feet tall, Ajax embodies the perfect warrior, brave, loyal, and unshakable in battle. Yet like many Greek heroes, his greatest strength will become his fatal flaw. At the center of our story lies Achilles' divine armor, forged by the god Hephaestus himself. This isn't merely military equipment, it's a symbol of supreme honor, a testament to greatness. With Achilles dead, the question burns in every warrior's mind: who deserves to inherit this legendary armor? 2 contestants step forward. Ajax, the powerful warrior who had fought beside Achilles countless times, saving Greek ships and soldiers with his mighty shield. And Odysseus, the clever king of Ithaca, whose strategic mind proved as valuable as any weapon. The contest between them would shake the very foundations of the Greek army. Before the assembled warriors and kings, both heroes plead their case. Ajax speaks of his battlefield prowess, his countless victories, the times he saved Greek lives through strength and courage. His words are direct, proud, reflecting his nature as a warrior who lets actions speak louder than words. But Odysseus, master of persuasion, weaves a different kind of spell. He speaks of cunning, of strategy, of wisdom in warfare. He reminds the Greeks how his intelligence helped them penetrate Troy's defenses. While Ajax fought with strength, Odysseus fought with mind, and in this contest, mind proves mightier than muscle. The judges, the Greek commanders themselves, make their choice. The divine armor goes to Odysseus. In that moment, something breaks within Ajax's proud heart. The warrior who never fell in battle falls victim to his own wounded pride. Rage and madness descend upon Ajax like dark storm clouds. That night, believing he's attacking the Greek commanders who slighted him, he slaughters a flock of sheep. In his delusion, he sees each animal as one of his former comrades, taking particular pleasure in torturing one he believes to be Odysseus. Dawn breaks, and with it comes clarity. Ajax awakens to find himself surrounded by dead livestock, his armor and hands stained with animal blood. The mighty warrior, who had never known fear, now faces something worse than death, shame. His reputation, the cornerstone of a Greek hero's identity, lies in tatters. Unable to bear the weight of his disgrace, Ajax plants his sword in the ground, the same sword once given to him by his enemy Hector. In his final moments, he delivers a powerful speech, calling upon the gods to witness his fate. Then, in an act that would echo through the ages, he falls upon his sword. The tragedy of Ajax teaches us timeless lessons about pride, honor, and the devastating cost of wounded dignity. In ancient Greek culture, a warrior's worth was measured not just by his strength, but by the recognition of his peers. When that recognition was denied, even the mightiest could fall. This story resonates across millennia because it speaks to universal human experiences. We all know the sting of rejection, the burn of wounded pride, the desperate need for recognition. Ajax's tale warns us about the dangers of letting pride overpower reason, of allowing personal slights to consume us. The influence of Ajax's story extends far beyond ancient Greece. His tale has inspired countless works of art, from ancient pottery to Renaissance paintings. Sophocles immortalized his tragedy in the play Ajax, one of the earliest and greatest Greek tragedies. Even today, psychologists use the term Ajaxian rage to describe explosive anger born of wounded pride. In our modern world, where battles are often fought in boardrooms rather than battlefields, Ajax's story remains surprisingly relevant. It reminds us that true strength lies not just in our abilities, but in how we handle defeat. It warns us that pride, left unchecked, can destroy even the mightiest among us. As we reflect on Ajax's fate, we're reminded that every hero has their breaking point. His story teaches us that sometimes the greatest battles we face aren't against external enemies, but against our own destructive emotions. In the end, Ajax fell not to Trojan spears or divine intervention, but to the most human of flaws, pride. Imagine waking up tomorrow with an extraordinary ability. Every object you touch reveals its complete history and future, playing like a movie in your mind. From the morning coffee mug showing its creation in a factory to the ancient ring predicting its fate centuries ahead. Suddenly, every item tells its story. But as we're about to discover, this power would transform our world in ways you'd never expect. Let's start with what seems obvious. Crime would change forever. Touch a murder weapon, and you'd instantly know who wielded it. Touch a stolen painting, and you'd see every hand it passed through. But here's where it gets interesting. Criminals would adapt. They'd start wearing special gloves, not to avoid leaving fingerprints, but to avoid imprinting their future actions onto objects. An entirely new branch of forensics would emerge, focusing on objects' stored memories rather than physical evidence. But the implications run deeper than crime solving. Imagine the antique market turning upside down overnight. That supposedly ancient vase, one touch reveals it was actually made last month in a basement in Ohio. The market for genuine historical artifacts would explode, while a new profession emerges: history authentication experts who can touch and verify an object's true past. Some antiques would skyrocket in value when their touch histories reveal connections to famous historical figures nobody knew about. Here's something less obvious: the emergence of clean object markets. People would start paying premium prices for factory-fresh items that haven't been touched by human hands. Why? Because nobody wants to buy a coffee table and suddenly experience the previous owner's entire family drama. Manufacturers would develop special handling protocols, creating entire factories where robots handle everything to keep objects' histories pristine. Think about the psychological impact. Touch your grandfather's old watch, and you might see both heartwarming memories and uncomfortable truths about his life you were never meant to know. Therapists would need to specialize in helping people cope with unwanted historical knowledge. Support groups would form for people traumatized by accidentally touching objects involved in tragic events. The privacy implications would reshape society. Giving someone a gift would mean sharing a piece of your past and future with them. Dating would transform. Imagine touching your date's phone and seeing their true intentions. We develop new social etiquettes around touching objects, and people would become intensely protective of their personal items. But here's where it gets really fascinating. The future-seeing aspect would create paradoxes. Touch your laptop, see it breaking next week, and decide to be more careful. Does that change the future you just saw? A whole field of philosophy would emerge around these temporal contradictions. Some people would become obsessed with touching objects to glimpse their futures, while others would avoid touching anything to prevent knowing their destiny. The business world would never be the same. Investment firms would hire people with particularly clear object-reading abilities. Touch a company's products, see their future market performance. But this would create new forms of insider trading. How do you regulate knowledge gained from future-sensing abilities? Education would transform too. History classes would involve students touching preserved artifacts to experience events firsthand. But this raises questions. Should children be allowed to touch objects that might show them disturbing historical events? Schools would need policies about appropriate touching age for different historical items. Consider the emergence of history-blocking materials, special coatings, or containers that prevent people from reading an object's past or future. These would become essential for maintaining privacy and preventing information leaks. Governments would classify certain objects as touch-restricted for national security reasons. Real estate would face a revolution. House hunters would know every detail about a property's past and future just by touching the walls. Insurance companies would require touch assessments before issuing policies. But would you want to buy a house if you could see it burning down in 20 years? Museums would transform from look-but-don't-touch institutions into interactive experience centers. But they'd need elaborate systems to prevent visitors from accessing sensitive historical information through touch. Some artifacts might reveal secrets that could rewrite history books or upturn religious beliefs. Perhaps most profoundly, our relationship with everyday objects would change forever. Every item would carry the weight of its complete time length. That simple pencil on your desk. It contains the story of the tree it came from and every word it will ever write. The wedding ring you wear might show you glimpses of your future anniversary celebrations or your divorce. As we wrap our minds around this reality, one question remains. In a world where every object tells its truth, would we really want to know all their stories? Sometimes the most powerful ability might be choosing not to touch, preserving the mystery of what was and what. Imagine standing at the edge of existence, where 5 mythical rivers separate the world of the living from the realm of the dead. These aren't ordinary waters. They're the sacred rivers of Hades, each flowing with essence more powerful than any mortal force. Today, we're diving deep into one of Greek mythology's most fascinating aspects, the 5 rivers that shape the geography of the underworld and the fate of every soul. In ancient Greek belief, when someone died, their soul had to navigate these mysterious waters to reach their final destination. The Greeks didn't see death as an end, but rather a transition, and these 5 rivers were the pathways through which every soul had to pass. Let's begin with the Achilles, known as the River of Woe. Picture dark waters churning with the grief of countless souls who have passed through its depths. The ancient Greeks believed this was the main entrance to the underworld, where Charon, the infamous ferryman, would wait with his boat. Only those who could pay with a golden coin, traditionally placed in the mouth of the deceased, would be granted passage. Those who couldn't pay were doomed to wander its shores for 100 years. Next flows the Phlegethon, the River of Fire. Unlike any river in our world, its waters burn with eternal flames. This river of liquid fire encircles Tartarus, the deepest and most terrible part of the underworld, where the greatest sinners face their punishment. The ancient Greeks believed its burning waters were used to torture the wicked, with flames that could never be extinguished. Perhaps the most famous is the river Styx, the river of hatred and unbreakable oaths. This is the river by which the gods themselves swear their most solemn vows. Legend tells us that when the goddess Thetis dipped her son Achilles into these waters, he became nearly invulnerable, except for his heel, which never touched the water. The Styx was believed to be so powerful that its waters could even dissolve metal, representing the absolute nature of divine promises. The 4th river, the Cocytus, is known as the River of Lamentation. Its waters echo with the wails and cries of the dead who realize their fate. The Greeks believed this river formed from the tears of those condemned to Tartarus, creating an endless cycle of sorrow. Its banks are said to be lined with weeping willows, their branches trailing in the dark waters below. Finally, we come to the Lethe, the River of Forgetfulness. This might be the most philosophically intriguing of all the rivers. Those who drank from its waters would forget their entire mortal life. Every joy, every sorrow, every memory would be washed away. The Greeks believed this river was crucial for reincarnation, as souls preparing to return to the world of the living would drink from the Lethe to begin their new life with a clean slate. These rivers weren't just geographical features of the underworld. They represented fundamental aspects of the human experience with death. The Achilles embodied the sorrow of separation. The Phlegethon represented divine justice. The Styx stood for the finality of death and the weight of promises. The Cocytus reflected the natural grief of loss, and the Lethe symbolized the possibility of renewal and rebirth. The influence of these 5 rivers extends far beyond ancient Greece. Their names and meanings have permeated literature, art, and popular culture throughout history. Dante referenced them in his Divine Comedy, and countless artists have depicted their mysterious waters. Even today, we use phrases like Stygian darkness to describe something particularly gloomy or impenetrable. Modern psychology has found parallels between these rivers and the stages of grief. The Acheron represents denial and isolation, the Phlegethon anger, the Cocytus bargaining, the Styx depression, and the Lethe acceptance. This shows how deeply the ancient Greeks understood human nature and our relationship with mortality. The rivers also reflect the Greek understanding of justice and cosmic order. They believed that every action had consequences, and these rivers were part of the divine mechanism that ensured fairness in the afterlife. The wealthy couldn't bribe their way to a better fate, and the wicked couldn't escape their punishment. Today, as we face our own questions about mortality and justice, these ancient rivers continue to resonate. They remind us that every culture grapples with the same fundamental questions. What happens after death? How do we face our past actions? What does it mean to start anew? The 5 rivers of Hades stand as a testament to the sophistication of Greek mythology and its enduring relevance. They tell us that death isn't simply an end, but a complex journey through sorrow, justice, binding oaths, lamentation, and ultimately, the possibility of renewal. In their dark waters, we see reflected our own hopes, fears, and eternal questions about what lies beyond the veil of mortality. What lengths would you go to protect your love and kingdom? In ancient Greece, one remarkable queen's answer to this question became legendary, as she employed wit and wisdom to outmaneuver an army of suitors who threatened everything she held dear. In the grand palace of Ithaca, Queen Penelope faced a crisis that would test both her loyalty and cleverness. Her husband, the legendary King Odysseus, had been absent for nearly 20 years. First, he'd gone to fight in the Trojan War, and then, due to the gods' interference, his journey home became an epic odyssey of its own. While tales of his adventures spread across the Mediterranean, Penelope's own story of resilience unfolded within the walls of their palace. As years passed without word from Odysseus, noble families from across Greece became convinced the king must surely be dead. More than 100 suitors descended upon Ithaca, each hoping to marry Penelope and claim the throne. These men weren't merely persistent. They were parasites, making themselves at home in the palace, feasting daily on the kingdom's resources, and depleting the royal wealth that rightfully belonged to Penelope's son, Telemachus. But Penelope, blessed with intelligence that rivaled her husband's legendary cunning, refused to be forced into a marriage she didn't want. Yet she couldn't simply reject the suitors outright. Doing so might provoke them into violence, endangering both her life and her son's claim to the throne. She needed a strategy that would buy her time while maintaining the delicate balance of power. That's when Penelope devised one of the most brilliant deceptions in Greek mythology. She announced to the suitors that she would choose a new husband, but only after she completed weaving a funeral shroud for Odysseus's elderly father, Laertes. This was a perfectly reasonable request. Preparing burial clothes for family members was a traditional duty of Greek noblewomen. The suitors could hardly object to such a pious act without revealing their true, dishonorable intentions. What the suitors didn't know was that Penelope had transformed this simple task into an ingenious trick. Each day, she would sit at her loom in full view of the palace, diligently weaving the elaborate burial shroud. But each night, by the light of torches, she would secretly unravel her day's work. This way, the shroud never neared completion, and Penelope kept her unwanted suitors at bay. For 3 years, this clever deception continued. While the suitors grew increasingly frustrated, none suspected the truth behind the never-ending weaving project. Penelope's hands worked tirelessly, weaving by day, unraveling by night, while her mind remained fixed on her beloved Odysseus, hoping against hope for his return. But as with many secrets in ancient Greece, the truth eventually came to light. One of Penelope's servants, perhaps seeking favor with the suitors, revealed her mistress's nightly unraveling. The suitors were furious at being outwitted by a woman, and their demands for her to choose a husband grew more aggressive. Yet even when her clever plan was discovered, Penelope remained steadfast. She had bought precious time, 3 years of maintaining her independence and protecting her son's inheritance. Her intelligence and determination had proven that she was every bit as resourceful as her famous husband. This tale resonates deeply with themes that remain relevant today. It speaks to the power of intellectual resistance against brute force, the strength found in quiet determination, and the importance of staying true to one's principles even when faced with overwhelming pressure. Penelope's weaving trick demonstrates how creativity and wit can be powerful weapons against those who rely solely on wealth and status. The story also challenges traditional gender roles in ancient Greek society. While the suitors attempted to claim power through aggressive pursuit and intimidation, Penelope maintained control through cunning and peaceful resistance. Her loom became both a symbol of traditional feminine duties and a tool of sophisticated political maneuvering. In Greek art and literature, Penelope's weaving has become a powerful metaphor for loyalty, patience, and clever resistance. Countless ancient vases depict her at her loom, and her story has inspired artists and writers for over 2 millennia. The phrase Penelope's web entered common language, referring to any task that seems never-ending or any clever plan to buy time. What makes Penelope's story particularly compelling is that she didn't need divine intervention or magical powers to overcome her challenges. Unlike many Greek myths where gods and monsters dominate the narrative, Penelope relied entirely on her own intelligence and determination. She proved that sometimes the greatest power lies not in physical strength or divine favor, but in the quiet persistence of human ingenuity. Today, Penelope's tale continues to inspire. Her story reminds us that resistance doesn't always require grand gestures or open confrontation. Sometimes, the most effective strategy is patient, intelligent manipulation of circumstances, turning seemingly powerless positions into sources of strength. In a world that often celebrates immediate action and direct conflict, Penelope's careful, measured approach offers an alternative model of power and resistance that remains remarkably relevant. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more amazing. Have you ever wondered if love could be so powerful that it could transform a mortal into a goddess? In ancient Greece, they told a tale that proved exactly that, the extraordinary story of Psyche and Cupid, where mortal beauty dared to challenge divine law, and love conquered all obstacles in its path. In a distant Greek kingdom, there lived a princess named Psyche, whose beauty was so breathtaking that people began worshipping her instead of Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. Mortals abandoned Venus's temples, leaving them covered in dust, while they flocked to catch a glimpse of Psyche's radiant face. Yet despite her divine-like appearance, Psyche felt desperately alone. No mortal man dared to court someone so beautiful they thought she must be a goddess. Venus, consumed by jealousy, devised a cruel plan. She commanded her son Cupid, the mischievous god of love, to make Psyche fall in love with the most hideous creature on earth. But fate had other plans. When Cupid saw Psyche, he was so startled by her beauty that he accidentally pricked himself with his own arrow of love. In that instant, the god of love himself fell hopelessly in love with the mortal princess. Concerned by their daughter's lack of suitors, Psyche's parents consulted an oracle of Apollo. The oracle's response was devastating. Psyche was to be left on a mountain, where a terrible monster would claim her as his bride. With heavy hearts, they followed the oracle's command. But instead of a monster, the gentle west wind carried Psyche to a magnificent palace floating among the clouds. In this magical palace, invisible servants attended to Psyche's every need. And each night, in complete darkness, her mysterious husband would visit her. He made one condition: she must never attempt to see his face. For a time, Psyche lived in perfect happiness, though she longed to know the identity of her loving husband. But happiness rarely stays unchallenged. Psyche's jealous sisters visited and planted seeds of doubt in her mind. They convinced her that her unseen husband must be the prophesied monster, plotting to devour her. One fateful night, consumed by curiosity and fear, Psyche lit a lamp while her husband slept. There she saw not a monster, but the breathtakingly beautiful god of love himself. In her surprise, Psyche's hand trembled, and a drop of hot oil fell on Cupid's shoulder. He awoke, and in his pain and betrayal, flew away, leaving Psyche alone in the now empty palace. The magical servants vanished, and the beautiful home crumbled to dust around her. But Psyche refused to accept defeat. If love could transform a god into a gentle husband, perhaps it could transform a mortal into someone worthy of divine love. Thus began Psyche's impossible quest to win back Cupid's love. Venus, still burning with jealousy, set 4 seemingly impossible tasks for the mortal girl. First, she had to sort a massive pile of mixed grains before sunset. Tiny ants, moved by her dedication, came to her aid. Next, she had to gather golden wool from violent, deadly sheep. A river reed whispered the secret of collecting wool caught in brambles instead. The third task required collecting water from the source of the river Styx, where dragons guarded the treacherous cliffs. Jupiter's eagle himself helped her complete this task, but the final challenge seemed truly impossible. Venus demanded Psyche journey to the underworld itself to bring back a portion of Prosperna's beauty in a box. Guided by a mysterious voice, Psyche navigated the dangers of the underworld. She avoided the temptation to help suffering souls, kept coins in her mouth for Charon the ferryman, and gave treats to Cerberus, the 3-headed guard dog. Yet after successfully completing her mission, curiosity once again got the better of her. Psyche opened the box, hoping to take a tiny bit of divine beauty for herself. But the box contained no beauty. Instead, it held the sleep of the dead. As Psyche fell into a death-like slumber, Cupid, who had been watching over her throughout her trials, could no longer stay away. His love for her had only grown as he witnessed her courage and determination. He wiped the deadly sleep from her eyes and pleaded with Jupiter to make their love legitimate. Moved by their devotion, Jupiter granted Psyche immortality. Even Venus, seeing how far a mortal would go for love, finally accepted their union. Psyche became the goddess of the soul, and her marriage to Cupid was celebrated with a grand feast on Mount Olympus. Their daughter was named Volupta's pleasure, symbolizing the union of love and the soul. This timeless tale reminds us that true love requires more than just physical beauty. It demands trust, courage, and perseverance. Psyche's journey from mortal to goddess shows us that love has the power to transform not just our circumstances, but our very being. Her story has inspired countless artists and writers throughout history, from ancient Roman frescoes to Renaissance paintings, and continues to captivate audiences today. In the end, Psyche and Cupid's story teaches us that the greatest obstacles to love often come from our own doubts and fears. Yet when we face these challenges with determination and faith, even the impossible becomes possible. After all, isn't that what love is all about? Believing in something greater than ourselves, even when the gods themselves seem to step. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to wield the power of lightning, command the seas, or rule the underworld? For the ancient Greeks, these weren't just flights of fancy. They were the very real powers of their gods and goddesses, beings who controlled every aspect of their world and still captivate our imagination today. Before there were gods, there was chaos. From this primordial void emerged the first divine beings, including Gaia, Mother Earth herself, and Uranos, the sky. Their children, the Titans, ruled the world until a new generation of gods, led by Zeus, rose to challenge them in an epic war that shook the foundations of the cosmos. After their victory, Zeus and his siblings divided the world among themselves. Zeus claimed the heavens and became the king of gods, wielding his mighty thunderbolt to maintain order. His brother Poseidon took dominion over the seas, commanding storms and earthquakes with his legendary trident. The third brother, Hades, was given the underworld, where he ruled over the souls of the departed. But the Olympian pantheon was far more than just these three powerful brothers. Hera, Zeus's wife and queen, became the guardian of marriage and childbirth, though she spent much of her time dealing with her husband's countless affairs. Athene, who sprang fully grown from Zeus's head, embodied wisdom and strategic warfare, becoming the patron goddess of Athens and a champion of heroes. Apollo and Artemis, the divine twins, brought light and darkness to the world. Apollo drove the sun chariot across the sky and presided over music, prophecy, and healing. His sister Artemis, the skilled huntress, protected the wilderness and its creatures while racing through forests with her silver bow. Aphrodite, born from the sea foam, wielded power perhaps greater than any weapon, love itself. Her beauty sparked wars and toppled kingdoms, while her son Eros shot golden arrows that made even the mighty Zeus fall helplessly in love with mortals. Ares, the god of war, reveled in battle and bloodshed, while Hephaestus, the divine craftsman, created wonders in his volcanic forge, including Zeus's thunderbolts and Achilles' famous armor. Hermes, the swift messenger of the gods, guided travelers and souls alike with his winged sandals, while also moonlighting as the patron of merchants and thieves. These gods were far from perfect. They displayed very human flaws: jealousy, pride, anger, and desire. Zeus's numerous affairs drove Hera to fits of vengeful rage. Apollo's pride led him to flay alive a satyr who dared challenge him to a musical contest. Aphrodite's vanity sparked the Trojan War when she claimed to be the most beautiful goddess. The gods frequently meddled in human affairs, sometimes helping, sometimes hindering. They blessed their favorites with extraordinary gifts and cursed their enemies with terrible fates. Athene guided Odysseus home from Troy, while Poseidon tried to destroy him. Apollo granted Cassandra the gift of prophecy, but cursed her so no one would believe her predictions. Their temples dotted the ancient landscape, from the magnificent Parthenon in Athens to the Oracle of Delphi, where Apollo's priestess delivered mysterious prophecies. People offered sacrifices, held festivals, and competed in athletic games to honor these divine beings, believing their favor could mean the difference between prosperity and ruin. The influence of these gods extends far beyond ancient Greece. Their stories have inspired countless works of art, from Renaissance paintings to modern novels and blockbuster movies. Their names grace our planets, chemical elements, and spacecraft. Their symbols and attributes still appear in corporate logos and government seals. But perhaps most importantly, these gods and goddesses represent timeless aspects of human nature and experience. Zeus represents authority and justice, but also the corruption of power. Aphrodite embodies love's ability to create or destroy. Athene shows how wisdom and strength can coexist. Their stories help us understand our own struggles with power, love, destiny, and mortality. The Greek gods remind us that even immortal beings aren't immune to the complexities of existence. They teach us that great power comes with great responsibility, and often great temptation. Their tales warn us about the dangers of hubris, while celebrating the potential for greatness in both divine and human nature. Today, while we may not worship at their temples or offer them sacrifices, the Greek gods and goddesses continue to reign in our cultural imagination. Their stories still resonate because they reflect universal truths about power, family, love, and the eternal struggle between order and chaos. In their strengths and flaws, their triumphs and failures, we see reflections of our own humanity, magnified to divine proportions. These Olympian gods, with their all-too-human personalities and superhuman powers, remain powerful symbols of the forces that shape our lives and our world. Their legacy lives on, reminding us that the stories we tell about divine beings often reveal profound truths. Imagine being married to the most powerful being in the universe. Now, imagine that your spouse can't stop chasing after other lovers. Welcome to the tumultuous world of Greek mythology, where even the queen of the gods isn't immune to marital drama. Today, we're diving into the fascinating tale of Hera, Zeus, and the elaborate tests she devised for her husband's many lovers. In ancient Greece, the gods were far from perfect. They embodied human traits, love, jealousy, anger, but on a grand, immortal scale. And no relationship exemplified this more than that of Zeus and Hera, the king and queen of Mount Olympus. Zeus, the mighty ruler of the gods, was known for his power, wisdom, and unfortunately, his wandering eye. His list of affairs was longer than a scroll in the library of Alexandria. Hera, on the other hand, was the goddess of marriage and childbirth. Ironic, isn't it? The patron of faithful unions was stuck in the most unfaithful marriage in all of mythology. But Hera wasn't one to sit idly by while Zeus gallivanted across the mortal world. Oh no, she had a plan, a series of tests and trials for Zeus's lovers that would make modern reality TV shows look tame in comparison. Let's start with one of Zeus's most famous affairs, his relationship with Io, a beautiful priestess of Hera's own temple. When Hera suspected Zeus's interest in Io, she didn't confront him directly. Instead, she devised a clever test. One day, Hera descended from Olympus and approached Io. With a smile that could freeze the Mediterranean, she said, "My dear, I've heard so much about your beauty and grace. Surely you must be blessed by the gods themselves. Tell me, have you ever met my husband, Zeus?" Io, caught off guard and fearing Hera's wrath, stammered and denied any knowledge of Zeus. But Hera wasn't fooled. She knew the signs of her husband's dalliances all too well. As punishment, she transformed poor Io into a white heifer, a cow, and set a 100-eyed giant named Argus to watch over her. Zeus, seeing his lover's plight, sent Hermes to rescue Io. The clever messenger god lulled Argus to sleep with music and stories, then slew him. But Hera wasn't done yet. She sent a gadfly to torment Io, driving the cow-shaped maiden to wander the earth in misery. This tale of Io showcases Hera's cunning. She didn't just punish, she tested. By confronting Io directly, she gave the mortal a chance to confess. When Io failed this test of honesty, Hera's retribution was swift and creative. But Hera's tests weren't always so straightforward. Take the case of Semele, another of Zeus's mortal lovers. Hera disguised herself as Semele's old nurse and visited the young woman. In this guise, she planted seeds of doubt in Semele's mind. "My dear," the disguised Hera cooed, "are you sure your lover is truly Zeus? Many men claim to be gods to seduce innocent maidens. If he is Zeus, surely he would appear to you in all his divine glory." Semele, naive and in love, took this advice to heart. The next time Zeus visited, she made him swear on the river Styx an unbreakable oath for the gods to grant her one wish. Zeus, besotted, agreed without hesitation. Semele then asked to see him in his true, divine form. Zeus was horrified. He knew that no mortal could withstand the sight of a god's true form, but bound by his oath, he had no choice. He revealed himself in all his thunderous, lightning-wreathed glory. Poor Semele was instantly incinerated. This test was particularly devious. Hera used Semele's own insecurity and Zeus's rashness against them both. It wasn't just a punishment, it was a test of wisdom and restraint, one that both Zeus and Semele failed spectacularly. But perhaps Hera's most famous test was the one she devised for Heracles, Zeus's demigod son. From the moment of his birth, Hera despised Heracles as living proof of Zeus's infidelity. She sent 2 serpents to kill the infant Heracles in his crib, but the supernaturally strong baby strangled them with his bare hands. Realizing that direct action wouldn't work, Hera opted for a more insidious approach. She manipulated events to drive Heracles temporarily mad, causing him to kill his own wife and children. When Heracles came to his senses, he was devastated and sought redemption. This is where Hera's test truly began. She influenced the Oracle of Delphi to prescribe a series of seemingly impossible tasks for Heracles, the famous 12 labors. These included slaying the indestructible Nemean lion, capturing the Erymanthian boar, and cleaning the vast Augean stables in a single day. Each labor was designed to be an insurmountable challenge, a test not just of Heracles' strength, but of his wit, courage, and perseverance. Hera hoped these tasks would break him, or better yet, kill him. But Heracles surprised everyone, perhaps even himself, by completing all 12 labors. In doing so, Heracles not only redeemed himself, but achieved immortality, becoming one of the most celebrated heroes in Greek mythology. Ironically, Hera's attempt to destroy him had only made him stronger and more famous. These tales of Hera's tests reveal much about the ancient Greek view of the gods and human nature. The gods, for all their power, were flawed beings, subject to jealousy, anger, and pettiness. Hera, in particular, represents the complexity of human emotions, the pain of betrayal, the desire for revenge, but also cunning and resourcefulness. Her tests often backfired, creating some of the most enduring myths in Western culture. Io's wanderings explained the geography of the known world to the Greeks. Semele's fate led to the birth of Dionysus, the god of wine and revelry. And Heracles' labors became a template for the hero's journey, influencing storytelling for millennia to come. But these myths also serve as cautionary tales. They warn against the dangers of jealousy, the consequences of infidelity, and the unpredictable nature of divine intervention in mortal affairs. They remind us that even the most powerful beings can be undone by their own flaws, and that wisdom and restraint are as important as strength and cunning. In modern times, we might not believe in Zeus hurling thunderbolts or Hera transforming people into animals, but the themes these myths explore, love, jealousy, revenge, redemption, are as relevant today as they were thousands of years ago. We see echoes of Hera's tests in our own lives and culture. The reality TV shows where participants face outrageous challenges, the scandals that rock celebrity relationships, the workplace rivalries that spiral out of control, all of these have their roots in the same human dramas that played out on Mount Olympus. As we reflect on these ancient tales, we're reminded of the enduring power of mythology. These stories have survived for thousands of years because they speak to something fundamental about the human experience. They help us make sense of our world, our relationships, and our own complex emotions. So the next time you face a challenging situation or a test of your own, remember Hera and her divine trials. And ask yourself, How would you fare if the Queen of the Gods decided to test you? Thank you for watching, and please stay tuned for the next episode.
Imagine a world where even gods must fight for recognition. This is the story of Manasa, the snake goddess who challenged the very foundations of divine hierarchy. In the celestial realms of Hindu mythology, where deities reign supreme and cosmic battles shape the universe, there existed a goddess unlike any other. Manasa, the serpent deity, born from the mind of the great sage Kashyapa, was destined for an extraordinary journey. Manasa's birth was no ordinary event. She emerged from Kashyapa's meditation, a living embodiment of his thoughts on snake lore and poison. Her very essence was intertwined with these potent forces, making her a unique and formidable presence in the pantheon of gods. But being extraordinary didn't guarantee acceptance. Manasa found herself in a precarious position, caught between the world of gods and mortals. The established deities, particularly Shiva, the destroyer, viewed her with suspicion. They questioned her right to be worshipped, her place among them. Undeterred, Manasa embarked on a quest for recognition. She knew her powers were real, her domain vital. Snakes, after all, were both feared and revered in the mortal world. They symbolized danger and protection, death and renewal. Manasa understood that her role as their goddess was crucial for maintaining cosmic balance. Her journey took her to the mortal realm, where she sought devotees among the people. She appeared to farmers, healers, and common folk, demonstrating her power over snakes and her ability to cure their venomous bites. Slowly, whispers of a new goddess began to spread. But not everyone was willing to accept Manasa. In the kingdom of Champaka lived a wealthy merchant named Chand Sadagar. He was a devout worshipper of Shiva and refused to acknowledge Manasa's divinity. This rejection became the central conflict in Manasa's story, a test of her resolve and divine status. Manasa approached Chand, requesting his worship. She said, "O merchant, I am Manasa, goddess of snakes. Offer me your devotion, and I shall protect you and your kin from the dangers of serpents." But Chand, proud and stubborn, replied, "I bow only to Lord Shiva. I need no protection from a self-proclaimed goddess." This rejection ignited a battle of wills that would span years. Manasa, determined to prove her worth, unleashed her powers. She sent snakes to destroy Chand's gardens, sink his ships, and threaten his family. With each calamity, she offered him a chance to relent, to accept her divinity. But Chand remained steadfast. He cried out to Shiva, "O Mahadeva, protect me from this pretender." And for a time, Shiva's blessings shielded him from Manasa's wrath. This divine tug-of-war illustrated a profound truth in Hindu philosophy: the interconnectedness of all deities and the complex nature of devotion. As the conflict escalated, it caught the attention of other gods. They watched with interest, some sympathizing with Manasa's struggle, others wary of upsetting the established order. This cosmic drama reflected the earthly struggles of acceptance and change, a theme that resonates even in our modern world. Manasa's perseverance began to pay off. More and more mortals turned to her for protection, offering prayers and rituals in her name. Her power grew with each new devotee, challenging the notion that divinity was a fixed, unchanging state. The tide turned when Chand's son, Lakhinder, fell victim to a deadly snakebite on his wedding night. In her grief, Behula, Lakhindar's wife, turned to Manasa for help. She undertook a perilous journey, floating down the river with her husband's lifeless body, facing numerous trials. Behula's unwavering faith touched Manasa deeply. In this moment, the goddess realized that true divinity lay not just in power, but in compassion and the ability to inspire devotion. She restored Lakhinder to life, proving her divine capabilities once and for all. This act finally broke Chand's resistance. He saw the truth of Manasa's godhood and the folly of his stubborn denial. In a moment of humility, he offered her worship, but with a twist that spoke to his enduring pride. He turned his back and offered flowers with his left hand, a less respectful form of worship. Manasa accepted this imperfect devotion, understanding that change comes slowly and that even flawed recognition is a step towards acceptance. This teaches us a valuable lesson about tolerance and the gradual nature of spiritual growth. With Chand's acknowledgement, Manasa's position in the divine hierarchy was secured. She became known as Manasa Devi, a goddess of snakes, fertility, and protection. Her story spread throughout the land, inspiring devotion and respect. The tale of Manasa's struggle carries deep significance in Hindu thought. It illustrates the fluid nature of the divine pantheon, showing that new deities can emerge and gain acceptance. This reflects the adaptable, inclusive nature of Hinduism itself. Moreover, Manasa's journey embodies the concept of tapasya, or spiritual austerity. Through her persistent efforts and unwavering belief in her own divinity, she achieved her goal. This teaches us the power of determination and faith in achieving our life's purpose. The conflict between Manasa and Chand also highlights the tension between tradition and change, a theme relevant to all societies. It shows how established beliefs can be challenged and expanded, making room for new ideas and diverse perspectives. In the end, Manasa's story is one of empowerment. It tells us that even in the face of rejection and adversity, one can rise to claim their rightful place. It encourages us to persist in our goals, to believe in our inherent worth, and to seek recognition for our true selves. As we reflect on this ancient tale, we can draw parallels to our modern struggles for acceptance and recognition. Like Manasa, we too may face skepticism and rejection in our pursuits. But her story reminds us that with perseverance, compassion, and unwavering faith in ourselves, we can overcome any obstacle. The story of Manasa, the snake goddess, continues to slither through the consciousness of millions, reminding us of the power of belief, the importance of acceptance, and the ever-evolving nature of spirituality. In her journey from obscurity to divinity, we find a timeless tale of triumph that still holds meaning in our rapidly changing